Hello everybody, Richard Bird here. How are you all doing? I'm doing part 2 in my Wargaming modelling discussing series. It's still a pretty casual one, just you know, setting up the mood and getting myself used to it. I've been doing a bit of work off camera, not as much on my stuff as I wanted to, but still some. I've, at least for now, finished this model. I'll try and get a better close-up than before, a bit more patient. He's based with a texture. He's shaded, basically highlighted. I think it shows it a bit better than before. Still not great, but I am using the front camera on a mobile phone, so I'm sure you can forgive me for my technology. So he's fit for battle now. He's a, I suppose you'd call him a Nurgle Space Marine, or a Death Guard, member of the Death Guard. The Warhammer 40,000 fiction is, in case you're not familiar with it, is probably the greatest science fiction you can get right now, so I would recommend it. Yeah, so that's why, even though I plan on using non-Games Workshop rule sets, I'm still going to use their models, or models that I acquired myself that are, you know, compatible in how they look and function and stuff. The new model I'm working on is actually this guy's superior officer, the Death Guard. Oh God, tell us. I've only just started work on his first coat of the green, so he's in the early stages. He's got the tolling bell, you know, bring out your dead and the end is nigh, chains, a plasma pistol. He's got a bell in his hand, bell on top, horns sprouting, you know, disease, death, growth, renewal, and all that science fiction stuff, which is, say, if you're not familiar with the fiction, I recommend it. I apologise, by the way, it looks like my camera is doing this thing where it kind of tries to constantly focus. I don't know if my lens is a bit dirty at the front or not, but, you know, I will hopefully get there. I hate it when it does that, when it kind of does that zooming in and out bouncing thing, but, you know, these are the early days, so this is stuff I've got to figure out. So yeah, so I'm going to paint a bit on this guy. I'll try and get close to the camera when I do it. I've actually been using this very cheap arts and crafts brush. It's quite big because, oh God, I'm terrible at this. Because with the type of paints I'm using, the Games Workshop contrast paints, because they're very, they work different to traditional modelling paints. You can use a cheaper brush, in my experience, so let's give it a good shake. I have to always shake these. So these cheap brushes are great because I'm not the best at making brushes last. So yeah, move this guy out of the way so I don't accidentally splat any paint on him. So wet my brush through because I heard it helps your brush last longer. I suppose I don't know if I've discussed my history in this hobby, because although it's not storied, it's not a storied history, but it's a long history. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologise now. If not, hopefully it's something that will interest you. I started my early steps in this hobby, it must be now in the late 80s. I had some friends that I grew up with, and they had these fantasy and science fiction models, and little models made of lead in those days. We never had health and safety like now, and yeah, they looked amazing. I mean, by today's standards, they were pretty atrocious, but they looked amazing in the way that old school stuff, you know, did. And back in those days, we used to swap or trade everything amongst ourselves because we were pretty poor kids. So that was how we acquired things, because we couldn't constantly get more like kids now. We redistributed our resources by trading and swapping, and I'm sure many poor kids from the 80s and 90s did this. And I got my hands on these models, loved them. got my hands on a few paints. I don't think they were quite perfect paints. Did some paint jobs. They were an abomination, so not a lot's changed there. Yeah, and and then at a similar time, my brother, and by extension my family, got our hands on a very well-known game called Hero Quest. I think they've recently reissued it, which was a dungeon crawling board game. So think of like Diablo, but on a board game where you pick your character, you go on missions, you acquire loot, you know, you kill orcs and skeletons, and then you go to the shop and buy loot and all that. And I got into it and absolutely loved it. And that was made by Games Workshop and Milton Bradley. It was a cooperative effort. I don't know if you remember the advert, the commercials. I use my broadsword and all that. And then they brought out a sister game called Space Crusade, which was set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, although a very older version of it, you could say. And using you pick your team of Space Marines. You could be Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, which these are different chapters. They're like different forces. Blood Angels. I don't know if there was anybody else, but I remember these names: Blood Angels, Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, and it just inspired me. If you know what I mean. It just made me go, wow. And you use these heavy weapons, and you're fighting dreadnoughts, and they were called androids, but they were basically Necrons by today. Which you can look up all these words if you're not familiar with it. And yeah, it was totally inspirational stuff. The rule sets were simple, but every Christmas and stuff, we play it as a family, this Hero Quest or Space Crusade. We do missions, and one of us, usually my dad or my brother, because they were the cleverest, were either or the most intelligent. They were the DM, controlling all the bad guys in the missions, and the rest of us, like my mum and me and my brother, or whoever wasn't DMing, were like the characters, and we'd go in, and both games were absolutely magnificent, and there was expansion packs where you'd have more missions and more to do. And yeah, I don't think we did everything, but I think we did a lot of it. We did a lot, and yeah, it gave me the bug, the love of the worlds, and I acquired models. I dabbled. I even at one point used my own primitive rules, where I was more or less playing with the models rather than using rules. And then you have your experiences, you're bitting and bobbing, you play other games. And then once I got sort of 15, 16, I got a little bit of money of my own. The local shop in town that used to sell computer games and console games, which was what we would call a retro gaming store now, but it wasn't retro then. Obviously, they were bleeding edge games. They had a back room with games of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k going on. And I started joining in and started acquiring and got myself some Space Wolves Marines and an Empire Warhammer army, fantasy army, and bitted and bobbed and committed and not committed. Never got very far with it because it was always dependent on other people at the time for me, because I didn't really get it. I weren't, and I'm not the brightest person. And then when things really changed was when, I believe it was my brother, sold me, it was either my brother or my friend, but I think it was my brother, sold me a Warhammer Fantasy Army deal, Wood Elves Army. And I bought it, and I absolutely read the army book from top to bottom, absorbed all the stories, the themes, their role in the world, because it's narrative, it's a proper fictional world like you get in a book series, except you get to shape the narrative, as they say. And played them, had some good times, some bad times. I realised soon that back in those days, I don't know if Games Workshop still do this, the rules did not match the stories. So if you're in your story, your guy or your unit were an absolute kick-ass elite, often when you play other people, they weren't. And that was really disenchanting. But on the other hand, for the most part, I really loved my journey doing this. I loved it, so I have no regrets. And we had some epic battles, and yeah, I lost most of the time because I suppose I'm still not tactical enough with rules and stuff to play an army like Wood Elves, who were essentially, back in those days, they were a guerrilla warfare army. I played them more like noble high elves, like something you'd get from Lord of the Rings, when really they were a guerrilla warfare army. But I had a lot of fun. Eventually expanded to other armies like dwarfs and high elves and chaos and all this, and played a bit of 40k and a a bit of 40k, a few games, not much. In the very early edition, one game I absolutely fell in love was a game called Epic 40k, which is basically Warhammer 40k, but at a smaller scale with what I believe were 15mm miniatures, which were tiny. And I love that because you could fight a full war, but my friend enjoyed it, but the other two people in our little gaming circle didn't embrace it. So I never got to explore the epic potential, which was quite heartbreaking because I had a bit of an obsession with it. I absolutely love the rule set, but when you're gaming in a group, it isn't just about what you want, and somebody has to compromise, and you know, in this instance it was me. We always fell back to Warhammer Fantasy. We dabbled a bit with a game called Necromunda and Necromunda, whatever it's called, and I quite enjoyed it. I wouldn't say absolutely loved it, but we always came back to fantasy for many years. And then as people came and left from our group and people moved on, we eventually just played Warhammer Fantasy right till the end. And then after Warhammer Fantasy was cancelled by Games Workshop in their eternal wisdom, tried a few other games like Age of Sigmar, which I really, really tried to love it and really tried to learn it and tried to convince myself, but no, I couldn't. So I tried those. I didn't want to be one of those moaners who don't try something, but it just didn't sing to my heart the way that fantasy did. And the rule set was, at the time, embarrassing compared to Warhammer Fantasy. And I tried a few games from a different company called Mantic, which were a rival company, or much smaller. Played Kings of War, not a bad game. But I loved how quick and simple it was, but it felt very bland. Like unit armies were almost identical apart from a few differences. And this was 2nd edition, I believe. And I'm not saying I explored the game thoroughly, so any Kings of War fans, please don't be offended if you're watching this. I'm not saying I was right, I'm saying how I felt from a limited... And I was going through mourning of Warhammer Fantasy, I was mourning it, you know, its loss, so I was, you know, it's like a person who is happily married and loves their wife, you know, and then loves their wife beyond measure, then their wife dies and they're a widow or a widower. For a while, new people they meet will be a comparison, and they will fall short no matter how they are, won't they, with the family and with themselves. It's sort of like that, as pathetic as that probably sounds. And I've sort of been a refugee of war games ever since. I mean, I've tried other games, bought things, but it's either not clicked with me, or I've not felt it, or I don't like one reason why I've abandoned Games Workshop as my rules provider is, and this is, to some people this might be a strength, but to me it's a weakness. I hate how quickly they change the rules, how they move on, and how stuff you buy is suddenly hard to justify. And I don't have enough time to spend my life constantly learning rule sets and trying to adapt it. I need something where I can have a diet version of a game, still be satisfied with it. So that's where I found eventually, after years of searching, one-page rules where A, the initial games are entirely free, B, all of my stuff that I've still got left, which I haven't got lots left, but what I have got left is compatible, and C, if I want more, they do a Patreon to have access to more advanced stuff. So I've got everything, all boxes ticked, and because they support everything, there's almost zero chance that what I buy or get will ever be useless. And it seems reasonably balanced. I can't scrutinise it too much yet, and that's part of my journey here. I'm going to paint the rest of my small forces and start using one-page rules, Grimdark Firefight, which is their version of Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team, and then play a few games. And because I've already got some stuff painted from the past, which I'll show you, and it's probably not quite as good as this stuff's getting, but it's good enough to use, you know. And if I carry on improving my painting, I can always go back, strip the models and repaint them, and that's another journey. And I'm also, I don't know if I've said this, so I'll slightly go off topic now because I'm good at doing this. I'm also saving up, I don't know if I've said this, so I apologise if I'm repeating myself. I'm saving up for a 3D printer. Not a resin, but an FDM, because I like the versatility in terms of doing scenery and stuff. And I'm going to get the Ender 3v2, whatever it's called, which it seems with the right settings, it can print models good enough, not as good as a resin, but good enough, and it can do scenery epically, and it's very cheap to run. So I will then start using that for this channel, and you know, like making, instead of buying all my models, making some, and I'll perhaps film it making them and things, and film the product and paint. So I plan to have far more than just me sitting here doing this. This is just going to be my early days, my bread and butter. People finding the way. If this resonates with anyone, they can go from there. But yeah, so, and I'm also, in terms of future content to look forward to, assuming there's the interest, of course, which I'm going to probably do, once I get my 3D printer maturely set up and I've learned the art of it, I'm going to have themed stuff. Like I was thinking about doing movie battles and printing off the miniatures with you guys, printing them, assembling them, gluing them, painting them, and then finding the correct rules. Probably using one-page rules for everything, because they've got for sci-fi, fantasy, and they've even got rules for spaceship battles. And I was thinking about doing epic movie things like printing off a load of models from the 300 film, the film 300, and having Spartans versus the Persians, and like printing off the hot gates and having the Spartans and Arcadians and all that, and making it where it's a themed battle where the odds are against them, like the film, and trying to recreate it and having some sort of cool music in the background, and I'll just narrate it and do it where you're not bogged down with the rules, but you can sort of see there are rules going on. Cool stuff like that, which people don't seem to do much of. Also, like, I wouldn't mind doing, for any fans of it, Babylon 5, the Battle of the Line, recreating that, making Minbari and Air Force fleets, print off an Earth, paint it all up, or Star Trek First Contact, have that Borg cube versus the Federation fleet, and have perhaps you've got X amount of terms to stop it from getting to Earth, that kind of thing. Try and do something for everybody, because I know people have different preferences. Perhaps even some Star Wars stuff, have the Battle of Endor, where I print off the Imperium Rebels and the Death Star and do that, and perhaps have a ground side of the campaign where the Rebels have got to take down the shield generator and stuff like that, and just do themed stuff, because with the 3D printer, that's the world that you open up. You can do all this on the cheap, because I could never afford to buy custom models. And that's how cool this could be. And suddenly, there's something for everyone, isn't there? It's not just Warhammer, then. Anything else we can think of, or even I could do requests where projects are requested. And I think that would be absolutely amazing, and it'd be so enjoyable for me to do as well. So, if you've got any requests or suggestions or opinions, I'm always willing to hear them. Because I want to make this, A, give me my love of the hobby back, and B, use it to help build up my YouTube channel and community. Because my YouTube, I loved what I did when I started it out, but just doing streaming games, I like it, but I had to lower it because it was getting very repetitive and unrewarding, and the technical problems, and I'm happy at 3 times a week. I may reduce it in future to 2 or 1, but we shall see. But for now, I'm happy with 3. But yeah, I've enjoyed doing the Diablo playthroughs, and we've got that growing, and I'm enjoying doing this. I want my channel to branch out as a true nerds channel, geeks channel, whatever the phrase is. And also enjoyment. I enjoy painting, but I don't justify it when I'm on my own very much. I just bit and bob. I do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. This is nice. So, but yeah, there's so many epic movie battles we could do. And just get the table out, get the scenery, make it a whole project of channels, and then the accumulation of it is the epic battle. Have the music in the back, well, some music in the background, copyright-free music, obviously, that's similar, and have the whole thing going on. Hope that sounds like something that you guys could see yourselves enjoying. Because I'm open to feedback. How are we doing? God, it's amazing how quick time flies by when you're enjoying yourself with something. I'm just basically working on the green. Getting this guy a bit progressed. This paint is remarkable. I can't see very well. I mean, although I've got good daylight bulbs in here, nothing beats daylight, proper daylight. I'm going to have to increase the lighting at some point, but one step at a time. And like I say, I'm not pro painting, I'm just tabletop quality, I suppose. Maybe calling it tabletop quality is being generous to some people, but you know, I'm me, I'm not some people. Snoots aren't welcome here. People with progressive advice and genuine enjoyment of things are always welcome. People who make other people feel bad because of things, you know, is not. I've occasionally joked about stuff too far, but if I've offended someone and I realise that, I will own it. I'm glad I've remembered to talk about all this stuff, because there's nothing worse than when you've got something to discuss and then you forget about it. Okay, I'm going to go in a second. I think we've had a good chat and I've given a bit more background. I'm still getting used to all this. But hopefully it's helping you guys get used to as well. These are the bits that are hard for me, where I can't really see what I'm doing, so I have to just put the brush in and guess. But I guess when you're doing tabletop, that's acceptable, tabletop quality. I love these paints, I love how they flow. These paints are my dream. I'm going to have to eventually buy some more colours. Expand my palette a bit. But when I hadn't done the hobby for ages, obviously I didn't see the point, because why buy something you're not using? Doing a lot of that in my life. Not anymore. There we go. Yeah, I highly recommend. I mean, if people are interested, I would happily do some Warhammer 40,000 background videos so you guys can learn it from me, if you're happy with that. It's just about the feedback. If you're thinking, yeah, it sounds interesting, but I don't want to spend my own time looking, I will happily do some videos. It won't be original, it'll be me discussing stuff that's out there, but then again, what is original these days? Let me know. I'll happily be your source for stuff like that. Wow. Not bad. Well, I'm going to call it there. It's been awesome chatting again and painting. Good to be back. I hope everybody's enjoyed this and interested in my direction for the, for the channel and for this side of the channel. I will be streaming on Wednesday, of course, so I'll see you all there if you're watching this when it's newly on, but other than that, just ignore that comment. Yep, so take care of yourselves. This is Retrobeard signing off. Thank you very much. It's awesome. Take care of yourselves. And if you do enjoy my work and my content and you wish to tip me, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee page. That's just buymeacoffee.com, and it's a /retrobeard is one word. And also, obviously, I've got super chat set up in stream, which can work as a donation. And of course, I've got other things like memberships and stuff like that. So with that said, I'm going to go. So please leave a like if you enjoy this. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.